Welcome to Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm Cary Quashen. I am your host, but I do not host this by myself. I have Michael Duarte. We actually call Michael, you know what he's called here?
The Silver Fox.
The Silver Fox. Why do you think that, Diane, you're over there. Why do you think, Alice? What do you think? Why do you think we call him
that? Beautiful silver hair.
She said beautiful.
Yes.
He was kind of cute, isn't he?
Yeah, he's cute.
Look, he's blushing,
Cute,
isn't he,
cute
Diane?
And fuzzy. Okay. Careful, my wife listens.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
I don't know. I don't know, Mary. He's flirting over here. You might want to talk to him when he gets home. You're speechless, Mike. I've never heard
blushing?
that.
Yeah.
Yes, he really is. So for those that tune in, you can watch that. You can see him on Time Warner TV every Monday at 4 p.m. Anyways, Action is brought to you by your local hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS, which we've been on the air now over 13 years.
And counting. Oh, wow, Cary, 13 years. And for a radio show, that's a while.
I know.
You know, in radio and television, I worked in television for a long time in radio, and, that's like a lifetime.
It's a long time, but, some great information that we're giving out, and we're proud to be here.
And, because of KHTS radio, this show has given out so much powerful information and saved lives.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely.
No question about that.
And it's just as we're there, we're brought to you by KHTS, AM 1220 KHTS, which we appreciate, and also Action Family Counseling, which is alcohol and drug rehabilitation centers. We do everything from outpatient to residential live-ins. And then the foundation, Michael, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that.
And your foundation, Cary, the Action Family Foundation, does so many things. But one of the things we like to mention here each week is something that people that are listening can participate in very easily. It's the free parent support group, and that's every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. at Canyon High School. And again, it's free, and this is the best place for families who are saying, we just don't know how to deal with our teen.
Right.
We need help. This is the place to get it.
I'll be there every Tuesday, 7 p.m. in the Double A building.
And you've been doing this for years and years and
We
years.
won't even talk about it.
That's right, because we talk about it every week. It started off under the tough love.
We're not going to talk about it.
Under the tough love thing, and then it became,
Yeah, it was tough love. I was actually flying around the country starting groups and counseling and that for them, and then it turned into Action. So, we've been doing this over 30 years.
It suddenly occurred to me, Cary, why you said we're not going to talk about how long you've been doing it, because last week you mentioned it, and I said, you probably didn't have the gray in your beard when you started doing it.
Yeah, just the gray in his hair, though.
Have you guys met my graveyard staff, Henry Mayo? He's going to start graveyard PRing.
Oh.
Sometimes it's good to be the boss. No, I'm just teasing. No,
you know how many times he's put me on the graveyard shift?
A lot. But so Mike, we do a lot of shows, and for 13 years we've done many. I mean, every week. Just about, with a couple of exceptions. And when Alice Reynolds comes on the show, it's like, I get excited and happy, and I also get a little sad and a little bit of that because of her story. So we're going to talk about compassionate friends today. Mm-hmm. And you guys, Diane and Alice, you want to talk a little bit about, unless you want to go to your action files first, but I like to introduce our guests before we
absolutely.
do that. So why don't we introduce our guests like I just did, and then let you do the... you do that all over the place today.
Well, before we go on to the action file, the reason you're here today really is to talk about a really cool event that's coming up that actually may be, they're not certain, but it may be the biggest candle lighting event in the world. And we're participating here in Santa Clarita.
Right. It's a worldwide candle lighting event. This is the 20th year. It starts in New Zealand at 7 o'clock. They light candles in remembrance of children.
And it goes all across the world in waves.
Right. In remembrance of children, siblings, and grandchildren that have died at any age for any reason. And they start in New Zealand at 7 o'clock, and then it goes around the world. So a candle is burning 24 hours. So it starts in one time zone and goes to all time zones. So it's burning for 24 hours.
So it's like a virtual wave of lights, what we call it. So
Well, that is such a neat
pretty
thing,
incredible.
And we're going to get into the explanation of when you're doing it, and we want to mention that a number of times, and then why in just a moment. But we do have a couple of action file items, Cary, and these are.
We're getting a lot of text messages and stuff like that because Alice is here, and then people know that. But just a few people. Well, you got Delise just sent the text, so hi Delise Diaz and Jake, and it looks like Carly and Jenna, and a whole lot of other people are sending text messages.
You have fans.
Very cool.
Oh my gosh.
Fans.
Yeah, fans. Here is some good news. Everybody's going to like this. The U.S. House on Wednesday approved the 21st Century Cures Act, which includes $1 billion in new funding for the prevention and treatment of opioid addiction. The bill will now go to the Senate, where it's expected to pass by next week.
But they got to do something.
That's a big wow. That'll put a little bit of a dent in it, $1 billion.
Well, I don't know if it'll put a dent. It'll help. Anything we can do will help. I mean, we're in the midst of an epidemic, and as you know, Mike, by the time this is an hour show, we'll lose what is it, 5 people
at least
in that
5.
1 hour, 3 from opioids, and that's just
sad.
Accidental overdoses. That's
So
not
sad.
That's not including car crashes and murders and drunk drivings and rapes and abuse and domestic violence. I mean, I can go on for days. That's just in this show time, 1 hour, 5 people will lose their lives to a drug overdose, an accidental. Isn't that
Sad.
crazy?
That's crazy.
I heard
Sad.
this just this morning that kids starting at 6 years old are being prescribed opiates because they're
Right.
playing like football or playing sports that they're in pain, and that's what they're given, and then they get addicted much faster than
They
an
actually
adult.
just approved it I think it was about 6 months ago for children under 12 for docs to prescribe pain medications. Now, pain medications are just for that reason. They're meant for pain, but short-term pain.
Right.
Anytime you take any kind of opioid or benzo, in a long-term kind of a deal, your body becomes addicted to that drug. And when you don't have it, you go through physical withdrawals, which actually even tricks you to think you're in more pain. Mm-hmm. And that cycle just continues. And we're losing, like we said, every day, way too many people. Yeah. So it's about time the federal government stepped in and they're putting some money into it. I mean, it's not even the money, it's really the education, it's the insurance companies, it's treatment and all that kinds of stuff that's really going to save lives. But anything helps.
Yeah.
But it's as you know, Cary, it's like bop-a-mole, because as soon as you get one, then a new one appears. And here's another bit from our action file. The Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, has added another fentanyl-related drug known as Fentanyl.
Right.
Fentanyl to its list of banned substances, and that's according to the Wall Street Journal. Fentanyl started appearing in the national database that tracks drug seizures in December 2015. The drug has been linked with 325 deaths through October of this year, and it's likely that it came from places like China, where they're able to make these.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's a lot of bootleg everything out there. You get these people they're accidental addicts. They had surgeries, they had problems, they went to the doc, they got prescriptions, and for some reason kept taking them. And now they're addicted to drugs. They go to the doctors. The doctors are tired of giving them any. They go on this cures program and say, wow, you've gotten 6 prescriptions in the last month from 5 different doctors.
Right.
So they're not prescribing them. So that means they have to hit the streets. Mm-hmm. And when they hit the streets, 2 things. Well, number one, the drugs are very expensive. These pills can cost an arm and a leg. And the other thing is now they're bootlegging these pills. So they have press machines that are presses, and they actually look like Oxys and Vicodin and all that, but they're not. They're cut with fentanyl, which are a whole lot stronger right now, and a lot of people are dying. So you don't know. It used to be, if you're getting heroin, you don't know what it's cut with. It's now pills too. Yeah. So it's changed the game. And a lot of people are really in big trouble.
And to put that in perspective, what you were just saying, Cary, it was, a year ago, maybe less, that we reported on the deaths that took place around Sacramento.
Yes.
Where the dealers were actually selling pills that they thought was Norco.
And
it was
they were
pressed
fentanyl.
to look like that,
Yes.
and it was fentanyl, and people were dropping dead
That's
from
the
it.
machine I was telling you about.
Yeah.
They have these bootleg machines, so they're cutting, and you can't tell them apart. They look identical. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, the addicts now, when they're hearing that the heroin is cut with fentanyl, they're not running away from it. They're running towards it because they know it's even stronger.
Right.
And they figure if I use just a little bit less, I'll get a lot more high, but a little bit less sometimes can be a little bit deadly.
Right.
So there's a lot of. I mean, it's really. I was talking to a heroin addict that I put in action over in Peru last week, and he said, "Look, I know I'm playing Russian roulette. Mm-hmm. I know every time I stick a needle in my arm, I could be the last breath I take, but they're still doing it. So it just shows you the power of addiction. It shows you the power of addiction.
And there are people out there that are willing to take carfentanil, which is the elephant tranquilizer.
Oh, yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Which is just huge. So that's what I'm saying. It's bopamol, because you're dealing with this when all of a sudden this appears, that appears. They change this formula, and then it's something else. And it's very scary. But the good news is Cary's been sitting here screaming about all this stuff for a long time, and suddenly now
everyone's
everybody's looking at it saying, we have a full-blown epidemic here. And now there's money being put into it.
But I've been saying this for 6-7 years, right?
A long time. Yeah,
I've been screaming. I could see it coming because I'm in the midst of this war against drugs, and I could see it coming. I kept saying it's going to be worse in the 70s. We're going to have an epidemic. People are going to be dying. More people die today from drug overdoses than car crashes, gun violence, and I can go on for days. Imagine if gun violence took as many lives as drug abuse does. People would be,
but I don't think you'd hear it as much as all the other ones. That's the sad part about it.
And addiction really is a disease. It's a medical disease. Look it up. I mean, it's not one of those kind of things where you can say it's self-will. Stop. There's more to it than that. It's a brain disorder.
Right.
It needs to be treated like any other brain disorder.
And we need to make sure everybody's talking about it and not hiding from it.
Well, check this out. Now, these are latest statistics, right? And I want to get to your show, but since we're on this, we'll stay here for a minute. 1 in every 7 Americans will end up with some kind of a drug dependency.
Really?
1 in every 7.
That's staggering.
That is staggering. It's just like crazy. It's off the hook.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who doesn't know somebody that's got a drug or alcohol problem. I don't know anyone who doesn't know somebody.
And all you have to do is sit in front of the television set for a half an hour, and you know that the United States of America is the pharmaceutical capital of the world, and that's what happens in part because we're so used to, we have to take a pill for this and a pill for that. Oh, you have sweaty fingernails? Yeah, we have a pill for that. And so the whole opioid thing, here we go to the doctor, they say, I have a pain, and you get this pill. And then what happens is, hey, I want more of that. I like that.
If one's good, two's better.
Yeah, and we've heard this story over and over. There are a lot of famous people out there that are just saying, I got addicted because I had this problem. I injured myself, and I went in and they got me on this, and the next thing I knew, I was addicted to it.
Well, we are treating today more accidental addicts than ever before. There's 2 types of addicts. If you look at this, your normal one that says, I'll never use drugs ever, and then they smoke a cigarette, they start smoking weed, they drink alcohol, and before you know it, they start experimenting with other drugs, and they're in big trouble. Yeah. They have that addictive personality, and they're just problems. Then there's the other addict that actually we're treating today more than the other one. And those are what I call accidental addicts. No track record of drug abuse, but they got somehow mixed up with these pills, and now they're physically and emotionally addicted to them. No track record, no starting with pot or alcohol or cigarettes or any of that. It's just with pills, and before you know it, they're in trouble too. And these are professional people that we're dealing with. We got cops and lawyers and doctors and therapists, and I mean, you name it. We treat them today. Nurses.
Wow.
So yeah, we really have a crisis on our hands that we have to pay attention to.
I think that was my biggest fear about marijuana because I watched it in college, which was 45 years ago, and it wasn't nearly as strong as it is today. And you get people who start it and say, okay, this is good, let's try something stronger.
They break their contracts. If they smoke a little weed, I just won't use hard drugs, and it just kind of goes.
Exactly.
But when we were young, they had reefer madness. I remember that somebody would smoke a joint and try to fly off a building, and then what these kids are finding out is these are not true. I mean, you don't smoke a joint and try to fly off buildings. Well, today you might, because we get a lot of people now that are really coming to our ERs and our psych hospitals that are smoking marijuana that are psychotic, period, end of subject. They're seeing things that aren't there. They're hearing things that aren't there. They think things are planted in their head. They go into severe depression, lots of suicidal thinkings, and we're seeing all this stuff now with this high grade THC. But in general, most kids are saying, "Wow, everyone's having fun. It's not as bad as everybody says." We know it is emotionally addictive, and it causes all kinds of health issues, emotionally and physically. But I mean, that's just gonna. It scares me to see that it's going to be so available now, and it's going to be so powerful.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about marketing this stuff, marijuana is okay. It's marijuana, but they're marketing. What is it? Those chewy candies. What is
The
it?
edibles,
The edibles. Gummy bears. And who wants to buy gummy bears? Those are kids.
Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, that's scary.
Lollipops
It's gonna
with
be
pot
fun
in
to
them.
get younger and younger.
Yeah, who are they really marketing? So we're going to have children that brains are not developed yet that are starting to eat this extremely high potent stuff
Right.
at 14 or 15 years old. I mean, we're going to have some problems.
Yes.
And even toddlers, because they're seeing this stuff laying around on the
Yeah.
coffee table.
Yeah.
We actually had them come to our ER where they're eating the edibles that the parents or brothers and sisters
It's
are
like
leaving
candy.
around because it's candy.
Yeah.
It's candy with some pretty dangerous stuff in it. So, anyways, that's my soap opera today.
Oh, well, let's switch gears. Whenever we have Alice Reynolds and Diane Baronis, tell us about you're with a group called Compassionate Friends. So
Correct.
tell us about Compassionate Friends. What is that all about?
Well, Compassionate Friends, in this valley, I actually was one of the co-leaders of it 17 years ago. I had lost a daughter 19 years ago. And at the time, there was nothing. There was nothing for anybody to go to.
Tell us what happened so people understand
Well,
why.
my daughter was killed in a car accident, and it is the most devastating thing, a loss of a child. There's no getting it over it. You get through it. You know, it's something that you literally have to fight to not be in a depressed state your whole life, but you learned that life can go on and it can get better, and one of the ways of doing that is by going to meetings and meeting other people.
I have to go back to what you said. You have to fight not to be in that depressed state, because depression is, I mean, we have all different kinds of depression. You have, you're depressed because of your job or your girlfriend or boyfriend. You have clinical depression that might need other help, but in at the end of the day, it is a fight. And it is a choice that you have to make somewhere down the line, that I'm not going to have this relationship with this depression.
Exactly. And like I was saying, is one of the ways of doing that is by going to having meetings and talking to other people who have had a similar, the loss may be different, the way you lost a child, but the feelings and the emotions that we go through they're all the same. I've always said you can meet 1,000 people who have lost a child, and we all grieve differently, but we still go through similar feelings and emotions. And the people that don't have not met other people and talked to other people and gotten outside help don't seem to get through it as easily. It's not an easy process, and I'll never say it is.
When you're going through any kind of a depression, especially the loss of a child, I mean, it's so easy to just get in your bed and never want to leave.
There are definitely times, I think, that everyone in our, we have about 40 members that between 25 and 40 that come on a regular basis, and every one of them have said at one time or another they didn't want to get out of bed, or they didn't want to do something. Even like we say, going on a vacation just to escape for a while is a good thing because of that. And that's why the candlelight is such an important thing, because it gives us a chance to honor our child and be with people that have gone through, a similar loss, and we can show love for our child. And that, I think, the two most important things in going through this process is the love that you will always carry for that child, and that you don't want your child forgotten. And this is one way of remembering them. And
they say time heals all. We know that's not true. time makes it easier.
Time lessens that pain, but
Right.
it never goes away.
Right, but it is. But all those other statements, the more you talk about stuff, yeah, it might hurt more when you start talking, but at the end of the day, it makes it easier.
It does. There is a saying that, mentioning their name may bring a tear to your eye, but it brings a smile to your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I just need to say that this is one of those shows where I wish I didn't have to say it, but I'm in the same club, if you will, that
Yes.
Diane and Alice are in, because my wife and I lost our son 4 years ago now. And it is difficult. You never get over it. I don't anticipate I will. I think about my son every single day. But, the great news is that you have a place like Compassionate Friends where somebody can go and get some help. And at the hospital, I get calls from time to time, people looking for grief counseling or some group. And I've given out your number
Thank
before.
you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us your story. What got you there? I've heard it, and it just I hate to do it. Let's let our listeners know.
16 years ago, February 17th, 2000, I lost my two sons. Danny was 15 and Timmy was 18. They were in a car of 5 teenagers. They were backseat passengers, and the driver was driving 100 miles an hour and lost control. Spun around and then hit the center divider, went airborne and landed upside down on top of another car. Killed the adult driver of that car. Danny didn't have a seatbelt on and was thrown from the car, landed about 50 or 60 feet.
And this took place here in Santa Clarita,
yeah, it was
by the
Santa
way.
Clarita on
Yes.
Soledad, past Sand Canyon. Danny was thrown from the car and was killed instantly. Timmy did have a seatbelt on, but because of the back seat landing on top of the other car, he was killed instantly. The boy in the back seat was 16. When the car landed, he crawled out and died. So the 3 boys in the back seat were all killed instantly, and the adult driver on the other side. So basically 4 lives were killed that night because of the driver driving recklessly. So a pretty emotional night. We were told by 3 teenagers coming to the door that had come upon the crash scene and had seen Timmy and came and told us that our son was dead. We drove to the scene to be told that 3 teens were dead and 2 were taken to the hospital. And the sheriff, I was screaming at the sheriff, we need to know where our son is. We need to. So he walked down to the crash scene, and I had to tell him what my son was wearing, and he told us that Timmy was there. And Danny had walked out of the house earlier that night because he wanted to go to the movies, and we said no, and he got mad and walked out, and we just thought he had gone to a friend's house. So my older son, Scott, had left to go try and find Danny, and he showed up at the crash scene and said he thought that Danny was in the car as well. So I had to tell the sheriff that night as well that we thought Danny was in the car too, and so he walked back down to the crash scene and came back down and said, that Danny was in the car too. So it was pretty devastating, needless to say, that we had found out both our sons were in that car and died.
Yeah.
When did you get involved with Compassionate Friends?
Let her finish, Mike. Go
I didn't know you were still in.
Go finish.
I'm sorry. It's such a devastating thing to find out both your sons are dead, and we stayed there till like about 1:30 because that was my way of showing, as a mom, that's the last thing I could do, that they were loaded into the coroner's van. As far as Compassionate Friends, Diane and I were friends before that. My older son, Scott, was on the swim team with her son, and she tried to get me involved with Compassionate Friends. It took me about 3 months before I could join Compassionate Friends, and once I did, I knew that was a place for us to be. My husband and I grieve differently.
Everybody does.
And, it showed me that that was okay, that we could grieve differently. And so that's... it's a good place to be. It's a good place to be. And so ever since then, we've been going, and I started out helping, and then became the newsletter editor, and now I'm the co-leader. And it's helped us tremendously with our marriage because it was hard in the beginning because, like I said, we grieved really differently, and we had a hard time in the beginning.
Marriages gets pretty rocky when these kinds of situations happen because everybody is they don't know what to do. So I'm glad that you found a place like Compassionate Friends and that you guys hung together. I've known you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, at first, I sat there and cried. I couldn't talk. And then you begin to listen, and you listen to the people talking, you hear what helped them, and then that kind of helps you with your grief. And then you're there for a while, and then you kind of talk a little bit, and then as the years go by, you start talking, and you start showing the other people coming in your advice, and pretty soon you're growing from that. You grow from that.
Just hearing yourself talk.
Yeah.
Because you sound, all of a sudden you're saying what you've heard other people say, and you realize that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's really not the train.
And emotionally, this particular situation where you lose a child is like a nuclear bomb just went off in your heart. I mean, you just can't even breathe.
They say it's like having a massive heart attack, what it does to your body, because the shock is so horrific.
I couldn't imagine. I was there when my friend Michael lost his son, and I'll never forget that because it felt like I was going into shock too.
Right.
It was terrible.
Even if your child was ill for a long time and you think you're prepared to some extent, it's something you're never ever prepared for.
How do you prepare for
you
that?
Don't.
You
You don't.
No way.
The one thing about Compassionate Friends is, after a certain amount of time, some of the, might be laughing or smiling or whatever at the beginning, and new people come to the meetings, and I know instantly what they're thinking, because when I went to my first meeting and people were laughing, I go, they could not have loved their child like I love mine, because I'll never laugh again.
Yeah.
And the truth is you do. You laugh again, you smile again, you're happy again, but that's always that underlying.
Yeah. It's always with you. As a great friend of mine once said, life's for the living. And you've got to go on.
Right. You find a new way, a new way to go on, and that's, me speaking at the high schools. That's my purpose for going on.
And I can tell you this: you are without a doubt one of Santa Clarita's local heroes. Because if you know what I do, I'm with kids always, and I always hear people say, "Did you hear the Reynolds talk?" Every 15 minutes or whatever, and they've made conscious decisions to change behaviors that were dangerous. So for sure, without ever knowing it, you save lives.
Thank you.
For sure, without ever knowing it, you save lives. On that note, Mike, you want to take us on break?
Sure. We'll be back with more Families in Action right here on KHTS AM 1220, your hometown station.